Hi guys, my name is Bishwarup and welcome back to our new podcast video. And today we have Miss Lisa with us. Hello Lisa. So
Hi.
thank you very much for joining us in this podcast. If you want to say anything, first of all.
Okay. Yeah. No. Thanks, guys, for having me. So should be interesting.
Yeah. So
It's
let
our
us start
pleasure.
with our. So let us start with our first question. So, ma'am, just tell us about your profile and what you have done till now and what you are currently doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have been, I guess, a few years now, basically in. Well, I've done also some energy efficiency work, but a lot of work in solar program administration, basically. And I came to it very circuitously, or whatever you want to say. I was actually in tech for about 20 years. So I was a software developer. Grew up in Louisiana.
Okay.
And yeah, so Katrina, it's sort of a wake-up call. I mean, I've always been very like sort of environment and animals and everything, right, to begin with. And I was doing some volunteer work. And then when that happened, I did a career shift.
Okay. So Lisa, please tell us, like, if students should enter the field of renewable energy in today's period, is it a good field to enter?
Oh my God, yeah, this is a great field. To me, like, this is the field. Like, this is, I mean, right? That's one of the reasons I went into it. Like, this is the call of our time, right?
Okay.
And it's a real, first of all, it's a real like all hands on deck moment. I mean, we're facing just such an existential threat, right? But it touches everything, and I was sort of thinking, like, before the program, like, oh, what kind of things to cover and everything. And I know you're both electrical engineers, right?
Yeah. Yes.
or studying to be electrical engineers. And like I say, my background was in software as well. I think, people get not hung up, but there's this sort of notion that, like, oh, we've got to come up with this silver bullet technology for solar, for renewables, right? And one day there'll be like this magic technology, and technology matters, but it's like a system-wide issue, and it touches everything, right?
Yeah.
And we're at a point now where, with the technology that we have today, we could get pretty far with this, right?
Yeah. Right.
But there's other components to it, right? There's, before the podcast, we were just having a conversation amongst ourselves, right? I was talking about, in America, there's already this 100+ year old built out infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
It's already there, right? And how do you transition that whole monstrosity, right? And how do you interface with that? So it's a finance question. From my end, it's like an operations, like a nuts and bolts,
Yeah.
Rubber meets the road, like, getting people signed up and on board, and getting them, there's salespeople out there all the time, getting people signed up and interested in, why would I change this? My lights work. It's a political question. It's a financial question. I think we talked about that, when we met before the show, where, solar sort of, over time, over the, say, a 20-25 year life of the system, you're actually going to save a lot of money, but it's just all upfront cost. It's all upfront cost, right? So it's a finance question. It's a political question,
Okay.
So, so I would say, Yeah, I don't know if your target audience, if you have a lot of like engineering student buddies.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter what your field. I guess this is a long way of saying it's a policy issue. You know, whatever, however you're coming at it as a student starting out today, it's touches everything. Energy touches everything, and this is energy.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's opportunity. There's so much
That's
opportunity.
really great. And can you tell us about currently what is the job market of renewable energy in USA? What is the job scenario of renewable energy? Yeah.
It's you know, we've got a new administration. So hopefully it'll become, you know, a lot more open. The other thing I want to say is, you know, okay, I've been going over all of these sort of, you know, opportunities in the professions. Yes, policy, engineering, and everything. You know, so much of the job creation is going to be, or has already been, construction. You know, people who put these panels on the roof. You know, people manufacturing panels. So there's opportunities everywhere. And I'm trying to remember because you know, sort of my first program administration work was with the state of Massachusetts, which is where I live, right? Now I'm focused on, I'm working with a company that's mostly focused in Illinois, but I would say around 2012 was focused in Massachusetts, you know, and these, you know, pieces of legislation that come out, you know, every now and then they revisit it, and you know, they're constantly having to sort of you know, prove what they've done in order to get these programs re-upped, right? And so they would put out these annual reports, and in one year there was like this just incredible 11%. You know, they were calculating the growth in renewable energy jobs. It was like 11%, right? And it's like nothing else was growing at that rate remotely. You know, and there are other parts of the economy that were like actually shrinking, and it's like it's very hands-on. You know,
It's a huge increase. Yeah.
If you think of residential solar, you know, that is like a, you know, house by house proposition.
Right.
You know, sales and installation and back office. So
okay, so that's great. It means it is increasing day by day.
Yes, and you know, like I say, new states sort of open up. You know, that's certainly what happened in Illinois. You know, certainly in the United States, you know, California is always, you know, sort of a leader in these things.
In these fields, yeah.
These fields. Hawaii, which has like this incredible, I mean, geothermal and solar, and sort of its own, it's off in its own grid, really. So they can kind of set their own policy. So they were a leader. But what happens is once, you know, other states, New Jersey, Massachusetts, you know, once there's a sort of proof of concept, like, you know, states will roll out a program. There's a whole sort of like second wave of states that will kind of stand back. It's like, let you try this, we'll let you make all the mistakes.
Yeah.
Not all the mistakes, because there's always new mistakes to make, but yeah, we'll kind of stand back and watch. And so, and certainly that's what's happened in Illinois. The adjustable block program there is just a few years old, you know, but again, once a new state will open up these programs, then some of these national solar companies they'll rush in, they'll set up offices, they'll start hiring people like crazy.
The future is good in this field. It's promising future.
It's a promising future, and you know, like I say, that's kind of my focus is this sort of like program administration. But obviously, you know, people in tech, you know, there's some like really gnarly, exciting problems out there that, you know, I'm not really familiar with, but, you know, that are out there to be solved in terms of like panel efficiency and grid reliability and those issues.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So following up on this question, like as we were talking about the companies and all, so what's the what should I say? What's the culture about? What about the entrepreneurship culture in USA? Like, if we are talking only about the renewable energy field, is it a good time to start a company of our own in the United States?
Oh, okay. If you guys wanted to start a company in the United States, you know what? Hey, here's my tip, because
Okay.
I just got actually I'm in a little, that might not mean anything to you. It's a little Cape style house. It's like a little house here, right? And I was surrounded by, you know, a little house. But first of all, my house, the roofs face east-west, which now with the current solar technology is actually, that's fine, right? But the people
Yeah.
next to me, like, they like put a whole second floor on, so it's like
Okay.
It is shaded. Yeah.
on one side, right? And then, so what I ended up doing is I got solar thermal, and there's your opportunity, because you don't have to mess with the utility grid, right?
Mhm.
And everyone, you know, here has, you know, domestic hot water, right? And so you get these crazy situations. Like I was running, you know, up until last year, you run your furnace periodically all summer just to heat your domestic hot water. I don't know what's the solar thermal situation in India, because I know in China, like it's been 20 years, like it's just old hat, like everybody has it.
Yeah, no, it is not that much common in India, but yes,
That's
people are installing the solar thermal system. Yeah.
People are getting aware about this thing and all.
Yeah, really fast payback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So less of the complexity, because that's a lot. When I say program administration, that's a lot of what we do is sort of behind the scenes. You know, all these little mini contracts that get made between essentially every residential customer and their utility to make sure that they're getting interconnected and that they're getting paid for the energy that they produce, right? So anyway, yeah.
Okay.
So that's another issue that people are actually getting aware of installing the solar energy systems.
Solar
Yeah.
thermal is completely freestanding. So, and it kind of floors me that it's like, oh my God, it was such a quick payback. I mean, it wasn't incentivized through the state. But it would have taken me 3 years to pay it back instead of 1, you know, whatever. It was just such a no-brainer.
No, that's really great. So adding to this
I
question,
show
I
this to
would,
my boss. It's like,
yes.
how can you say that about PV? How could you? But the thermal is really.
Okay. So adding to this question, I would also like to ask that recently Texas faced a huge blackout due to the power grid. So do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah. So, and that sort of gets back to the complexity. And again, I know we had that conversation earlier about
Yes.
the Indian electrical. Well, you were saying you have like one big state-run
Yeah.
electrical.
In different states, they have different things. They have
Okay.
different grids or like that. Yeah.
Yeah, Texas is always, I mean, that's their deal. They call themselves the Republic of Texas, right?
Yeah.
Like they've got this mentality, like we're as big as a lot of countries. We can be, we have in a lot of countries. We're a country.
Okay.
And sort of, still having that sort of like, I guess, sort of like frontier mentality, spirit or whatever.
Yeah.
So they're not tied into the rest of the electrical grid. So for good and for ill, most of the states have these sort of regional electrical subgrids,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
But ERCOT, the power provider or the power grid in Texas stands alone. So it's not connected to any other state. So there's no, the cavalry won't come. You know, if all of your plants are down, you can't look to another state to say, you know, send us power.
Okay.
Right. So they were completely isolated. The other thing is that the philosophy of that grid was very much that, you know, again, you know, low regulation, right? Low cost most of the time, right? Because what happens is, you know, because there's no backup, you can get these big spike, you know, price spikes, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, no regulatory structure saying that you have to weatherize, no regulatory structure saying that you have to have overcapacity, which you have to have in the rest of the, you know, just in case something goes, a plant goes out,
Yeah.
you have these backup plants, or, you know, be interconnected with your neighboring states. So they really didn't have any of that, you know, by design. So it's just a completely different way of doing that. Now, you know, look at interconnectivity in the Northeast or something, right? I'm trying to remember. This was like 2007 or something. But basically, the Massachusetts, right? It's on the same like giant subgrid, like literally with Ohio, right? And there was, I think, some trees that hadn't been clipped or something about 2009 in Ohio. You know, like grid maintenance hadn't happened, and there was sort of like this uncontrolled power surge and outage, and it just blacked out like the entire
all over Massachusetts.
all over the sort of like the Northeast United States.
Oh.
So like, yeah, right. It just cascaded across, and you guys are the power engineers, right? It cascaded across the entire system. So you know, there's everything's a trade-off, right? But like that was just a really big Achilles heel of the Texas grid. You know, the sort of like, and they had a similar thing happen 10 years ago, right? Where there was a big freeze, and, you know, whatever, the natural gas lines, you know, things froze, right? The wind turbines froze in place, the natural gas lines froze, right? And, you know, and there was, you know, a big investigation, a big report that comes out, and you've got to weatherize, and they just didn't do it, you know, because it's no, we're into like low cost, and that's going to raise our cost. So
these are few things which tells us that we should install the solar photovoltaic system so that we can get rid of these blackouts, and people will face very few difficulties.
Well, you know, and again, you know, the reality with solar, I mean, unless you have an off-grid, which is going to add, you can do it, you know, but it's going to add cost to your system. I mean, you're still depending on that electric.
Yeah. You will be isolated from the grid, from the utility. Yeah,
right. Well, there's a big focus now on this sort of microgrid.
Yeah, the microgrid concept is coming.
The microgrid, and so it's very much, actually, I shouldn't even say, I think of it as piloty, but again, you know, I wouldn't call myself exactly like following that or like totally up to date on that.
What is the current scenario of microgrid in USA?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that right now I still think of it as very piloty.
Okay. Because in India they have recently announced that they are going to bring microgrid, but they are actually working on it. They have still not brought it. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and certainly, you know, I think that's going to also be in part where the future lies. You know, this notion that, you know, even if power goes, if there's a power outage citywide, that maybe you select a core of you know, important functions, you know, your hospitals, maybe if it's a freeze, you know, you need a school where people can come and stay warm or something, or, you know, a hurricane or something. So you pick sort of your critical infrastructure, and you have that with the ability to sort of like island itself in an emergency, in power, and have enough power to power itself.
It'll be a better option to grow in the field of microgrids, I guess. So.
Yeah, you know, that's the wild and wonderful thing about this field. You never really know what's gonna take.
Yeah.
You know. So, and so much of it is just, again, becomes a policy issue. You know, what's essentially going to be unleashed because you have got the right regulatory framework for it, or somebody comes up with some funds for it. It can be. It's hard to predict.
There will be many factors, like the geographical factor will be also a great thing that we need to be concerned.
Right.
So, like these things.
But
there is an amalgamation. There is an amalgamation of many reasons that has to be considered, right? Yeah.
No, but in terms of trying to guess, I guess you're talking about people planning a career, and can I tell you oh yeah, microgrids, that's going to take off, that's going to be the thing. I mean, you would think so. You would think that with resilience, the focus on climate change, a certain amount of climate change is baked in. It's going to happen. So we have to be resilient to that. Yes, it will happen, but will it be the next thing? It really can just sort of depend on maybe there's just a governor of one state who says, we're going to do this now. We're going to put some funds into it. We're going to put, we're going to whatever regulatory changes need to happen to make this possible. I'm going to push it through. You just can't predict that.
Yeah. Right.
But I would say,
okay, then.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so coming to the next question, let's talk about the awareness of solar energy among the people of United States. If we talk about 5 years ago, a date 5 years ago, and today's date, is there any difference among the awareness that people are are people aware about the solar energy and the need to shift to renewable energy?
And again, like I say, it can very much matter on a state-by-state basis.
Okay.
Where the correct policies are in place. Like I mentioned, I grew up in Louisiana, right? So a certain amount of going back and visiting family and such. And there were a couple of years where it's like I would notice it's like in my parents' neighborhood, it's, hey, more solar panels going up or something, and which makes sense because I mean it's a very sunny place.
Yeah.
And it's like India, it's a place where you'll want your air conditioning. Well, actually, no, you can't have in Delhi. So
yeah.
Right. I know it's a big place, but many regions where you will want your air conditioning. So you've got a high load. It's like, yeah, you would want solar, but again, there's a limitation on what's called, I don't know if you're familiar with net metering.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. So they had like a 0.5%. They had some really low cap, right? And people started putting solar array, and it's like, they instantly hit the cap, right? So it just never gained, and it could tomorrow again. It could gain time tomorrow. It could gain popularity again tomorrow if those policies were changed. But again, going back to, for example, Illinois, which I'm so focused on right now, there's definitely more of a push, because the policies are in place, and so during COVID they're not doing it, but people going in normal times, door to door, knocking on your door, and it's like, hey, have you thought about so literally, have you thought about social media? So basically, if you're like a solar salesperson, right, you can have your own social media page and talk about like, hey, reduce your energy bills, just all over the place. So it becomes, and as you your neighbors get it. It just normalizes it. Yeah, you see it on your neighbor's roof. You go over, you ask them, how's that working for you? You know, kind of thing. Yeah, so that's exciting thing. It's you know, seeing it sort of, it's not quite mainstream, but not as exotic or rare. You know, like this idea that, oh, only hippies do that. It's like, no, your neighbors do that. So it's becoming more common.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah.
So adding to this question, I would also like to ask that,
Okay.
talking about students, what do you think, whether students should come to USA for studying on renewable energy or not?
Well, you know, again, you know, renewable energy. I guess if you knew that that's what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
So you know, what you guys are doing, electrical engineering, that's like great, you know, because there's so many questions. Panel efficiency, right? What's going to become a more intermittent grid?
Yeah.
Right? So like those questions of intermittency, control of the grid, you know, we haven't touched it all on like demand response, right? But just having that real, you know, that real time flexibility of, you know, putting a call out. It's like, hey, factory, shut off one of your production lines, you know, and yeah, you know, so I guess grid-wide control systems, you know, it's going to continue to become more and more area of focus. I'm sure that you know, batteries. My God,
storage system is one of the
storage system. Yeah.
Storage systems, new battery technologies, battery responsiveness. Yeah. There's a ton out there. There's a ton out there, you know, and
there are so many things which are to be explored in the field of solar energy.
Right. And so that's it. I would say, you know, if you just have, you know, do your career, you know, get your skill set together, and that's I can't tell you where, and that's what's fun about it. I can't tell you exactly where it's going to go. Right. But like, if you have that solid experience and that solid knowledge base, you're going to be able to sort of like ride the waves, you know, as technology comes. And it's exciting. It's exciting. I mean, I staged myself, right? I mean, I started working in computer software in the 80s, right? And the transformation of like how everything is done in society, it's incredible, right? And that is happening. We're living through that happening in energy now. So part of the excitement is that something is going to come up that we can't even picture, right? Right, and that will be in your career time, right? So I can't tell you what that is. I'm just telling you, you know, have your skill set, have your toolbox, and you'll be good. You know, you can jump into it.
No, that's
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about the states in USA, like in which states there are more number of jobs in the field of renewable energy, the attracting states of the renewable energy.
Right. So, you know, as I've mentioned, California has always, they're always kind of the first ones to venture in and really push, you know, everything, you know,
one of the leading states,
like fuel standards and such, right? They kind of always, and they're a big enough market, like they always are the first ones out there. Actually, you know, where I am, Massachusetts. So basically, the New England states got in really early because there was a kind of a regional greenhouse gas initiative, right? So that included not just New England, New York, New Jersey, right? So those are some sort of early solar markets. You know, as I mentioned, Hawaii, which just has a tremendous inroads of renewable energy, right? In terms of like percentage of grid and everything, and you know, very, very friendly policies. So those are some great places to be. you know, different states, you know, can kind of start, you know, and it depends, you know, obviously, you know, we're talking solar, you know, but, you know, the United States has great, well, first of all, onshore, you know, has had for years a great onshore wind resource. I mean, if you think of the Great Plains, right, it's just like this phenomenal wind resource. So, you know, Texas has, you know, led in wind turbines, Nebraska, you know, many of these states have, you know, just a very, you know, high incidence of wind and offshore wind, you know, after being in Denmark or whatever for what, like 20 years or something, just now starting in the States.
Okay.
Sort of like, you know, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, you know, and I think there's discussion of kind of going down the coast, you know, like I haven't heard recently, you know, exactly, you know, where projects are green lighted, but that's becoming an opportunity as well.
Yeah, and I think
Okay.
Arizona is also bringing certain new changes for solar energy because they also have a pretty much good amount of sunshine hours like that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So yeah, and really, actually, I was kind of like, you know, like putting together some notes before this and stuff. Actually, you know, a good resource is Desri, and so what does that stand for? The database of state incentives and renewable energy efficiency. So it's all sort of in one spot, and you can kind of look, because it really, like I say, it's so much of this is down to policy. So if you check out that website, you can basically see, you know, which jurisdictions have supportive policy, and it's all gonna change. You know, like I say, you know, with the Biden administration, they're going to be pretty focused in rolling a lot of this out on, you know, finally putting together a national framework for a lot of this.
Okay.
Yeah. But again, you know, and that's what, you know, as I've been saying, you know, it's not just a technology question, it's a political question. So, you know, it could really take off. It could really, you know, run into headwinds. Can't tell you what's going to happen, but, you know, the potential is obviously there for this to roll out on more of a nationwide.
Okay, that's really great. So, so you have so many types of renewable energy sources like wind energy, hydro energy, and solar energy, and biomass, geothermal. So, which one is the most dominating one in US currently? And what do you think that which one will dominate in next 5 to 10 years?
Wow, I mean, you know what? I don't know how to measure that, and I don't. Oh, here's another resource. You know, if you really want to dig into it, is NREL, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. Yeah, right. Because they're going to have the stats on that.
Yeah.
You know, just in terms of, yeah, because like I'm so focused on solar, but just in terms of like gigawatt, you know, production, right? I don't, you know, I'm not as familiar, like I say, with the sort of onshore wind, but, you know, I think like one of those turbines, like how many rooftop solar, you know, how many rooftop solar installations does one of those guys represent? So, yeah, I think it depends on how you measure it.
Okay.
But certainly, like I say, the, you know, solar market continues to increase.
Okay, that's really great. So with this question, I would like to end this podcast here. So thank you very much, Lisa, for helping us out.
No, thank you guys.
And if you want to tell anything to our subscribers, then you can please tell.
No, I just, if you have any other things that you didn't think it got covered that you wanted to.
Yeah, you can just ask us in the comment box, or we'll give the link of Lisa's account, LinkedIn account, and you can connect with her.
Okay, no, if you're you know, if your followers have any questions or something, happy to try and you know, if I don't know, I'll look into it.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, good talking to you guys.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
and you know, good luck in your pursuits and in your you know, in your you know, and other people entering the field. It's a great time. Very exciting.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Bye now.